Welcome to Scotch Plains, New Jersey. This is Verizon Fios, Channel 22, and Comcast Cable, Channel 34. Scotch Plains Television. Your town, your TV.
Scotch Plains Television presents a meeting of the Township Council. And now, from the municipal building, the Scotch Plains Mayor and Council.
Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Township of Scotch Plains Conference Meeting, Tuesday, August 12th, 2014. Ms. Lucina.
I wish to make the following announcement to show compliance with the Open Public Meetings
Welcome
Act,
to
known as Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of New Jersey, 1975. Notice of this meeting was given by adopting an annual schedule of the location, time, and date, sending copies to the Scotch Plains Fanwood Times, the Star Ledger, and the Courier News, posting in the municipal building, and filing a copy with the township clerk within 7 days following the annual organizational meeting of this body. If everyone would please rise for the pledge to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Lucina, would you please call the roll? Here.
Mr. Marcus?
Here.
Mr. Vastine?
Here.
Mayor Glover?
Here. Next item up on our agenda tonight is public comment. Anybody wishing to address the council may do so now by coming forward, stating your name and address. Please.
Mayor Glover, Town Council meeting. My name is Robert Apuzio, and I live at 883 Westfield Road since March of 1992 with my wife and two daughters. This is the first time in my life that I've ever attended a meeting where I had to address the council, but I had an unfortunate situation happen to me because I was a law-abiding citizen. Because of Hurricane Sandy, my wife and I decided when our house lost power for 2 weeks, we wanted to have a generator installed. So I went to the town offices of the engineer, Mr. LaCosta, and I got a packet, and I had to go through a lot of forms to get the gas company to assess our meters to see if we had enough capacity. We had to go through a lot of, we had about $600 worth of permits we filed for, and we had the contractor set up, and they came and they installed the generator, and part of the process was to have inspections. And on June 10th, I had 3 inspections scheduled. One was the electrical, one was the plumbing, and one was the fire. At 9:30, the electrical inspector came to our house and did the electrical inspection. Everything was fine. And then about a half hour later, my doorbell rang, and it was a man named Robert Senar, who is the plumbing inspector. And I opened the door, and he says to me, "I just lost my balance and fell on your porch." And I said, "Are you okay?" And he says, "Well, I think I hurt my hand." And I'm a doctor. I've been a doctor in town for 35 years. I looked at his hand. It wasn't bleeding. So I said, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And he said, "If you got an ice pack, I'll take it." So I went in the house and I gave him an ice pack. And he went and he did his inspection. He passed the plumbing portion and he left. Everything was fine. The fire inspector came about a half hour later. So everything's good. Our generator passed and we're in good shape. A week later, Mr. Senar comes back, rings my doorbell. I open the door and he says, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "I remember you." He goes, "Well, I want to take pictures of your property." And I said, "Is this in your official capacity as a plumbing inspector?" And he says, "Oh, no, this is for the lawyers for the lawsuit." And I looked at him and I said, "I'm sorry." I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "Well," he goes, "I'm suing you for my injuries from when I fell on your porch last week." And I said, "I'm just like stunned." So I said, "No, you do not have my permission to take any pictures." And I said, "Please leave." I immediately, this was about 11:15 in the morning on June 17th. I immediately called Mr. LaCosta's office and told him what happened. And he was very courteous and everything, but he basically said that there was nothing he could do about it. So about 2 weeks later, I get served with a summons from Mr. Senar's attorney. And he alleges in his suit that I have failed to control, maintain, and repair my property. I'm negligent. I don't conduct inspections. I don't control my premises. My house is dangerous and unsafe. And he's been sustained serious permanent disability and has been required to obtain medical treatments and will be prevented from engaging in all of his usual activities to great financial detriment and loss. Which is interesting because I found out he's never missed a day of work yet. He's still on duty working. So I don't know how disabled he is. And as part of this, that's really outrageous, is his attorney made a brutal blunder by putting in pages from another summons alleging that a shooting occurred at my house and someone's fingers were shot off. And this is filed in the Superior Court. This becomes public knowledge. I'm a doctor in town, 35 years. This is extremely embarrassing, defamatory, and this man was operating as an employee of the Township of Scotch Plains, where I pay my taxes. I'm doing my duty, getting my permits, getting my inspections, and this guy comes in and he wants to sue me because he says he fell and got hurt. No one saw him fall. I don't know if I'm not saying he fell or he didn't fall. All I'm saying is a resident should not be subject to lawsuits from township employees when they're executing their duties as part of their job. Don't they have, workman's compensation? And, why am I being sued and why am I going through this? This is a terrible thing. And my purpose in coming here was to let the mayor and the council aware of this situation. This should not be happening. It's a terrible injustice.
Doctor, that's certainly troubling to hear all of this. I wish I could advise you here, but what I would recommend, Counselor, that we have a follow-up with this matter, and Mr. Gimes as well.
To the doctor a couple times on the issue. I've spoken with our council. That's really all I can say.
No, what was, if I may, what Mr. Gimes, the manager, just said, that he has spoken to the doctor, he's spoken with our council, but he's not at liberty to discuss it further at this time, and that's probably understandable. We know how these things go. But there will be some follow-up on this matter. Aside from the fact that I would be troubled by this as well, I guess on behalf of all, we thank you for bringing this to us, and hopefully this will get resolved. But
it's going to have to get resolved. But this man is almost 75 years old. When I spoke to Mr. LaCosta on the phone, he offered to me, he said, these guys have to go out and do jobs that are on uneven ground and things like that. Maybe they're not fit. I witnessed this man walking. As a doctor for 35 years, he's 75 years old. He's got arthritis in his knees. He's got arthritis in his hips, I'm sure, because he walks with a gait. If this man is physically unfit to do this job without falling on people's steps, then he shouldn't be working for the township. And, I'm there 22 years. The mailman walks up and down that step every day. He's never fallen. The other inspectors were at the house the same day. They didn't fall. My wife and I walk up and down those steps every day. We didn't fall. So, this is a totally frivolous lawsuit. I don't want to use the word fraud because that involves a lot of allegations, but this is frivolous. Somebody comes up and rings your bell and says, "I just fell on your porch because you have a defective railing," and I brought these photographs that I took. This is my home. There is no defect in my house. This is my house. I've been there 22 years. I'm a proud resident, and I'm insulted. I'm offended. This is defamatory, and I think because this guy, I have the homeowner's insurance. Their team is working on the lawsuit, but I've also engaged my own attorney, who he's a former prosecutor, Mr. Romanko. He's representing me because if I have to countersue the town, this man is a township employee, and the town employs this guy. If he can't physically do his job without falling on people's steps, then he shouldn't be working for the town.
Doctor, I fully understand your position, and
thank you. Thank you for listening to me.
No. I think the council appreciates you coming forward, and Mr. Gimes has already stated that he's been in contact with our counselor.
Mr. Gimes has been extremely cooperative. He's listened to me every time I've called him. He's spoken to me. He's tried to give me, honest, understanding advice, and I really do genuinely think he's concerned about this. So I don't have any. My problem is with the lawsuit. This is ridiculous. You don't get sued by an inspector. In other words, every time you get a permit, you got to worry about the inspector coming to your house and falling and suing. I would warn every resident, if you have inspectors coming, start videotaping. Make sure that you can prove that they didn't fall on your property, or else they're going to start to sue you.
Thank you, Doctor, for coming out today and sharing this with us. Is there anybody else who would like to address the council?
Carolyn Perkins, 861 Westfield Road. First of all, I want to tell you that the advisory trip today to the Crystal Point in Point Pleasant was wonderful. The bus was 55 seniors who had a great time, and it was nice to see people out. We did not get caught in the rain. It was a wonderful show, and I wish we could do more of those. In reading the newspaper, and I only have to go by the Scotch Plains Times, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Berkeley Heights is getting a $185,000 generator funded by a grant from FEMA. The Mountainside Police is getting their Interceptor SUV with a grant. Their older vehicle will go to another municipality or be up for sale. I understand that Brookside Park was part of the bond ordinance to clean it up, and yet I'm sure environmentalists would love to help with cleaning up Brookside Park. Now, I don't know if any of you shop around to buy a car, to get your groceries, do you use coupons? We really have to do better in spending our money. We really have to shop around. I don't see any applications from any of the departments in our town, okay? And the grants are out there. I mean, Joe Duff has told you there's money out there, but you have to apply for it. We maybe won't get it, maybe we will. For the Shady Rest Architects report, and for that bond ordinance that you wanted all those things, I do not think a citizen should have to request that it be put into the library. I would hope that someone would give the town clerk the authority to immediately put it into the reference library, because that's where people go. I don't have a computer at home. I go to the library. I don't have a lot of computer skills to open up tabs and windows and everything, but I can go to the reference and read the architectural report, read the bond ordinance. I think that's very important for some of the older people in this community, and maybe for some of those who are foreign and don't speak real good English. In saying that those things should be in the library at the reference desk, to me, we should not have to ask for it. And if it's there, that is total transparency. Total transparency. You're showing it all, you're letting us review it. Those who want to can, those who don't care, that's their problem. Thank you.
Ms. Perkins, as always, thank you for coming out and sharing us concerns and those thoughts with us. Is there anybody else that would like to address the council this evening? Seeing nobody, we're going to move on to council discussion items. First thing up on the agenda is a business district development ad hoc subcommittee update. Mr. Gimes? I see Mr. Doyle around here.
I believe there's more than one member of the committee present.
Mr. Doyle, if you could introduce the members of the committee that
Yes, I will. As far as I've seen, Catherine Dreyer is here. I don't know that anyone else is present. No, but I have been designated by the committee to at least bring the council up to date on discussion, because we're not prepared for any suggestions at this time. All that we've had to do is to discuss various items.
Mayor, perhaps Mr. Doyle will be more
Yes.
comfortable sitting.
I'll be fine.
Well, Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Can,
Whichever way.
you're fine, Mr. Doyle.
Okay.
Please continue.
Okay.
If you'd like to sit, you're welcome to sit. If you'd like, I've worked with you on the planning board, wherever you're comfortable.
Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
But I do want to point out that there are 6 other members other than myself. And one is Joe Martirullo of the Darby Road Restaurant, and another is Bill McClintock, former mayor and businessman, Thomas Russo, Esquire, and they all have businesses on Park Avenue, 2nd Avenue in Scotch Plains. There's also Catherine Dreyer, as I mentioned, Dave Cecchio of Elite Properties, who worked on Fanwood Crossing, and myself. And I'm also a member of the planning board, as the mayor has pointed out, and I was also a member of the planning board in Belleville for 20 years. So my total experience on a planning board is 37 years. I also want to point out that during that time, I have served also on other downtown committees. I've worked with, in fact, in the very beginning stages in the 80s, not as an employee, but as someone who's helping to promote the idea for the League of Municipalities and other organizations, the Main Street, New Jersey, which is, of course, the councilwoman's idea that she brought forward to us. I'm very familiar with the aspects of that. I can't tell you that I'm 100% without any rust on it, because it's been a while since I've looked over the criteria for that. But I want to point out, with my experience and with the other experience, the others have brought forward some very, very good discussion. And we're not here to make any suggestions, recommendations, or imply that anything that we've talked about is there as a priority. And one of the reasons for that is we've only been meeting since May. We met every other week for approximately an hour on Thursday mornings so that we could review an awful lot of material. I think we have a very good committee and a very thoughtful committee. And I think, as everyone knows, having worked myself particularly with the League of Municipalities and a lot of other groups, when you're sitting at a table, there is absolutely no regard for party politics or anything. People are addressing a common topic, and they're seeing a problem that they're intellectually and I would say honestly trying to address. And I find that with this committee. It's a very thoughtful committee. I want to first point out that we have set up an informal structure as to how we're placing our discussions, so that you could see that we're trying to address important points. We have set no priorities, however. We're looking at first infrastructure and design. And the infrastructure and design would include sidewalks, and we have pavers already out in place right now, storefront themes, benches, signage, and review standards that work in other towns, design standards that work in other towns. Perhaps there could be a theme of some sort. The colonial theme has come up in the past with Scotch Plains, but there are modern themes or all types of things that at least make a downtown look consistent, modern, and appealing. And those are the kinds of things we're looking into. We're also looking into marketing, promotions that are common. Everybody knows there are various promotions that go on during the year, a web page, more publicity through the television channels, contests, parades, publications, mailings, and holiday-related events. One thing that did start to come up with a little bit more attention than others in that department was perhaps kicking off a contest that would engage some local professionals as well as high school kids. We are also looking at land use ordinances. Are there problems within our land use ordinance structure? And we called Ken Anderson, who is the Zoning Board of Adjustment Chairman, and Bob LaCosta to give us their insight on what they feel we might want to address. But we're not really there in any way, because it doesn't look like there is a pressing need for changes within the land use ordinance per se. Perhaps we'll discover things as we go along. But we have a lot more people we want to interview, and that includes the chair of the planning board, Paulette Coronado, who is not able to make the earlier meeting. And as I said, a lot more people. We're also looking at, and we have only touched on it, economic incentives, where we could identify funds and means to assist merchants economically in making some of these things that we might come up with happen. Another interesting idea that I know was thrown out years ago, and we might want to revisit because there's a lot of interest by committee members, and that's perhaps a jitney. We're just looking at it. We want to examine why discussion on the jitney did not take hold the last time. A lot of time was spent on it. Funds were available to start a jitney, but somehow it wasn't deemed as something that was practical. Perhaps that's not practical now, but there has been discussion that it could be beneficial. And if that's something that could be in place and it does show that it would have effective results, that's something that we could do. We're also looking at the Main Street, New Jersey, downtown New Jersey. I submitted to the committee some work from downtown New Jersey, which is really, it's located in Plainfield right now, and they have a lot of suggestions on not only implementing the approaches that you might have to a project, but a downtown project, but perhaps they could identify funds, some structure that you could follow, and then you would be able to proceed with their help. At this time, we are not calling in any other groups. We're making everyone aware through our discussions of what's out there that other groups have. The state has funding. We're aware also of the SID in Scotch Plains. We want to find out what ground have they covered so we don't cover that also. And perhaps what positive things that may have come from the work of the SID we could implement or put into our work and our suggestions. I think that would be a practical way of proceeding. So what it comes down to is that we're in the very early stages. We're only 6 weeks along. Most people have missed maybe one meeting, but the bulk of us have been there. I've missed a meeting. And we've all strived to bring the best thoughts together. And I think that's all that I've brought to you now, is some thoughts so that you can see how we're moving along. We're not going to operate anything in secret. We're not trying to do anything that is going to offend the residents or anyone, because we realize that anything that we do and anything that has been done needs buy-in. If you don't get that buy-in, if we don't have the buy-in from the downtown people, we don't have the buy-in from the council, then all of our work goes to waste. And that's not something that is good for the town. It's not good for our efforts. We're sincerely trying to make a problem that has been addressed several times a lot clearer and a lot more able to be resolved. And perhaps we'll have an incremental way. We'll have Scotch Plains take on a very dynamic type of a position, as opposed to our neighboring towns. So I thank you for your time, and if you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Doyle. Does anyone have a question for Mr. Doyle?
I just would like to thank you for your time volunteering in this committee and for the other committee members. It's obviously something that is very important because it has the potential to really move Scotch Plains to a very good place. I appreciate the fact that you've been so diligent in the work that you've done and that you're really looking to bring in a lot of groups of people. You mentioned that you were looking to get information from the SID, and I'm hoping that Mr. Russo, as a member of the SID and a member of your committee, will be instrumental in making that happen. As a side comment, I had put forward another name about 2 months ago. I don't know where that went, but I do think that I was happy, quite frankly, to have a woman added, because I do believe that a lot of money is spent in local shopping areas by women, and a lot of input there could be very helpful. but I would like to see the committee grow just slightly. And I'll resend that email to you, Mr. Gimes, in case. It wasn't on the, it hasn't been on an agenda for vote, so I didn't want to fly off the seat of my pants with the vote. So if whatever we can do for that in the future. It sounds like you've made some progress, and I appreciate you coming tonight.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Please, Deputy Mayor.
Yes,
Yes.
Mr. Doyle, I just want to thank you for coming, and thank you for that presentation. It was very good, very enlightening, and I think it's good for us to have an idea of what's happened up to now. I understand it is the early stages, as you indicated, and I think it's good for the public to have some understanding and to see that this is an area of great concern to many residents and to members of the council, and we thank you for putting in the time to address this and the effort and all the expertise that you and the other members bring to the table. And we look forward to hearing from you in the future as to further thoughts and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
Councilman Vastine? Mr. Doyle, I do have some questions for you, and I do thank you for coming out tonight. As you know, the majority of the council requested your presence or someone from the committee to discuss what you've been doing. I just want to take you back just a little bit to the resolution that formed this committee. In the resolution, it stipulated that there would be minutes from all your meetings that should be given to the clerk. Are we doing that?
We have minutes. I'm not aware of that stipulation, but we have minutes.
Yeah, it's in the resolution. I think we need to, if you would, then follow up with that.
Yeah, sure. Jeff has been very good at compiling what we need to follow through on. And if there are any gaps, I'll make sure that it's covered.
Okay, yeah, because you've had several meetings, as you alluded to, and that
Sure.
we're not complying with that. The other thing is too, I'm troubled by a memo that someone wanted me to see, and essentially it was written by Mr. Lara, and it was submitted to the entire committee. What's troubling is not that you did this or Mr. Lara did this, was that we've heard at great length how prior administrations and politicians have gotten in the way, of progress to move the downtown forward. And the commitment in that resolution was that should not be the case this time, which I bring to your attention that Mr. Lara CC'd one of the council members, Mr. Councilman Vastine, on a list of suggestions that you all were working on, and I suggest that that should not be done. I mean, Mr. Lara, who is our township attorney but serves as a committee member, we should know better that if we're going to share it with somebody, which was contrary to what we originally agreed to, then it should be shared with the deputy mayor and with the entire council. You made reference to one point there, which was this jitney, but there are other references in this memo that's of deep concern to me, and it has to do with selling township municipal building, potentially moving it or looking at moving it to Jade Isle. Okay, I didn't know they were for sale. I'm just reading off what someone wanted me to see, Mr. Doyle, okay? It makes reference to functional obsolescence. It makes reference to that there should be no sacred cows. And I believe Mr. Gimes has a copy of this as well, and I would expect Mr. Gimes to be sharing this with the council too, if this is what you consider to be minutes, okay?
No.
But this is from Mr. Lara, and it's to Mr. Motorola, Mr. McClintock, Mr. Russo, Mr. Cecchio, yourself, and then CC to Bo Vastine and Jerry Gimes. It's troubling because none of us know how far-reaching you might be. We've heard some very thoughtful suggestions, municipal standards, facade potentially standards, a jitney, which has been discussed in the past. But some of these things are pretty serious. One suggests that we move Town Hall behind Park Middle School because they have plenty of space there and they have unused recreational facilities. Well, if you're going to have those discussions, I hope someone is talking to the Board of Ed. So,
Mayor, I would like to point out that so far
I'm
as...
just referencing what's in this memo.
No, I'm not denying any of it. It's not something that is an official document, I'm sure. But I will tell you that the discussion on Town Hall, that came up a few years ago. And of course, it raised all kinds of problems, and it had its supporters and so on. But I think that the committee understands something about that. Because it is here in downtown, it's a legitimate issue to at least discuss, and we've only had 5 meetings, and I think it came up at 1 or 2 meetings. I'm not really certain at all. Maybe Catherine was there, I don't know. At any rate, what we've concluded is that this is a valuable piece of property, yes, but it's here. To make it really valuable, to make it really outstanding to a developer, the downtown has to be attractive. The real estate here has to be attractive. You will know it. Everyone in Scotch Plains will know it if it's time to move this building. It isn't among the priorities of discussion in any way with the committee. It is perhaps a topic that I overlooked because I did not really think that it was as relevant to today in discussion as the topics that I brought forward. I wasn't hiding it. I'm just saying to you that I think that there's a lot more that we want to do, and as I said, incrementally. And that's the Main Street idea, that's a downtown New Jersey idea, incrementally. If we have something spectacular happen, the town hall is involved, then it's not this committee that's going to make that kind of a decision or recommendation. You'll know it, and
No,
as I said, the citizens
I
will
fully
know
understand it, but I'm saying these are very serious discussions.
They are.
And,
Yeah.
having to do with, how the Board of Ed uses behind Park Middle School.
Sure.
Moving us to Jade Isle. I mean, the implications financially.
Oh, sure.
Are over the top.
Oh, sure.
I mean, you're talking, $15, $25 million to pull off something like this. And I guess my biggest concern is when I hear there's no sacred cows, okay, and how we should develop Second Street. Currently numerous banks are within a 2-block radius, creates no foot traffic. All stores on East 2nd Street should have residential above retail as well as Park Avenue, 3 stories with retail on first floor. Maybe that's something we're supposed to do. I don't know how you get there, okay? These properties are all privately owned. And so, that said, all I'm looking for is more transparency, and if the resolution calls for minutes to be taken, they should be taken.
Yes.
And no governing official should be on this. I mean,
I think that maybe it's just the reverse. All of you should have a copy.
Well,
and it will help to enlighten you, because you can tell the impact that all of that had to me. I'm coming here making
no, I
public...
appreciate it, Mr. Doyle. I know you, and you're quite a professional. So
Yes.
I'm surprised when something like this appeared to, but not the deputy mayor, not the mayor, not the rest of the council, but one individual. So
I'll be certain to ask that all of the minutes go to you and the town manager.
And the rest of the council.
The rest of the council. When I say you, I'm addressing the council.
And they should be made publicly available, I suspect.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
okay.
Sure. Just tell us the means. I guess it would be through the manager's office. I have no problems with that at all.
Mr. Doyle, as always, I appreciate, all
sure.
the volunteer work you do for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
The next item up on our agenda is residential fire sprinkler code. Mr. Giles?
I will take Councilwoman's
Suggestion?
Oh, Mr. LaCosta, that was only for Mr. Doyle. No, that was only for Mr. Doyle. Yes. How are you, Mr. LaCosta?
I'm very well, thank you. In April
What's that?
of
I'm
this
sorry.
year-
Why don't we move this one to you? Mickey, could you, Deputy Mayor, move that to Mr. LaCosta?
It doesn't work that way.
Now it'll work.
It'll work this way. In April of this year, a joint memo went out to every mayor in the state of New Jersey looking for their support and endorsement on the fire sprinkler bill for the state of New Jersey. The last 2 years, we worked very diligently and had a bill passed. It was Bill 1570 that passed the Assembly and the Senate. It got to the governor's desk, and unfortunately, it did not get enacted to law. In the early part of this year, March, there was a new bill introduced, 1698, which was passed by the Assembly. The reason is that in New Jersey, the only way you get items in your building codes is through the governor's office. We have been working tirelessly over the years to get residential sprinklers installed in the code for new, and I emphasize new, 1 and 2 family dwellings only. It does not affect someone who would be building an addition. It's new 1 and 2 family dwellings. The statistics are overwhelming that new lightweight construction materials are being used throughout the country, and I'm sure you've seen them. You may have some of these in your house, but these are considered I-joists, part of lightweight construction, and they obviously, unfortunately, when there is a fire, they do burn a lot faster than solid lumber. We have an article from the Atlantic City Press of June 8th of this year. The headline is "Modern Home Building Material Fuel Blaze Faster," and the other headline is the cheaper they are, the quicker they burn. We've had a campaign on this, and we're in the process right now. Like I said, we've reached out to every mayor in the state of New Jersey, trying to get these resolutions passed and back onto the governor's desk. Since the legislative cycle is now, for this year, is only 7 months old, we were very happy that we got it before the Assembly and that we got it passed. We have a year and a half to get it approved by the Senate, which we think will be successful by the end of the year, and really back onto the governor's desk. It is an item in the new 2015 code. If you know how New Jersey works, New Jersey is its own, it writes its own code. We take the international code that's developed throughout the country. We have a committee that sits, we go through it page by page, word by word. We put things in, we take things out, we adopt our own code in New Jersey. Once it's approved through Department of Community Affairs, the commissioner there, he takes it to the governor, he puts his seal of approval on it, and then it's adopted uniformly throughout the state. Like I said, I've contacted myself and the president of the Fire Sprinkler Coalition. Back in April, we've received already, and most towns are like Scotch Plains. By the time it gets to the mayor's office and it gets on for discussion, it's the summer. You have less meetings, but so far this year, I have a resolution from the Township of Belleville, Alexandria Township, the borough of Bloomingdale. I'm expecting one, and I haven't gotten any mail because we haven't had any meetings, from Florham Park, Milburn, Egg Harbor, and Saddle River. I'll give you just a little quick brief synopsis on what fire sprinklers do in residential structures. If you're familiar with the construction today, nobody is using copper piping in their domestic water supply for their plumbing. Just too expensive. As fast as they put it in, the guys will bust in the house with cordless sawzall and cut them out because copper is so valuable now. They're using a plastic material called PEX. It's flexible water supply. It's approved by the code. In today's trades, a plumber can rough a house in one day with PEX. It's blue and red. It's not real hard to identify. The blue is cold water and the red is hot water. It's flexible. They run home runs from a manifold. They have a manifold in the basement. They run home runs to all your other lavatory facilities. With the residential type sprinklers, they actually make almost like an octopus or a spider head that you can then tap off of these lines and put your domestic sprinklers in your homes. So you always are using that water that's attached to your domestic water system. There's no standby charge because it's coming through your meter. Typically today, the new homes we see in Scotch Plains are anywhere between 3,500, maybe 6,000 square feet on the high end. Typically, your 1-inch water line that's coming in from the street, it's plastic, goes into your meter, comes out of your meter, and that's all done by calculation for bathrooms, and usually end up with 1-inch piping on your first floor, and then it gets smaller as you go to your second floor. With the PEX, all they do is they tap off and they put the sprinkler heads in. It's all part of a design standard. And there's a lot of history that goes back to residential sprinklers. It goes back to several reports that were done by the federal government in the early 2000s. And the reports are astounding where they actually are able to provide, they actually did live burns in California. And they were able to have a success rate of residential sprinklers. In the early tests, they were above 80%, and 35 years later, that same report, because of technology, was significantly increased. Sprinkler heads in a residential unit are like I said, they're not hard piped. When you go into a high-rise building or hotel or something like that, it's all hard pipe. It's all black pipe. Sprinkler unions all put them in. The residential sprinklers will be able to be installed by the plumbers. They'll be certified and they'll be installed that way. Sprinklers are not like Hollywood. When you see a movie on Hollywood and the guy runs out of the room and he pulls the pull station by the door, that pull station doesn't fire off the sprinklers. It doesn't create a deluge of water throughout the entire building. It works at a rate of rate. If you have a sprinkler in the middle of this space here, the fire occurs, the sprinkler head gets hot, pops the water, puts the fire out. In a residential sprinkler situation, you can generally put out that fire when it starts with one head in that area. It uses 7 gallons of water to put that initial fire out. If you take the same statistic and you use it, based on what the fire service does, if you take a house that has approximately 50,000 cubic feet of space, it would take 500 gallons of water per minute when the fire department reaches that house to initially put the fire out. If you take an average room that's 15 by 15, it would take 75 gallons of water to put that fire out in that room. Typically your residential fire sprinklers use approximately 7 gallons of water to put the same fire out. So you're reducing that by significantly a lot. The way they're hooked in, the way they're tied into your system, if you have them, for example, if you have a fire in your basement, that head goes off, it's tied into your residential smoke detector system, because now you're sleeping on the second floor. You don't know because sometimes there's not enough smoke to set that sprinkler off, to set that smoke detector off to alert you that you're on the second floor. That sprinkler head goes off. There's a flow rate switch that detects that water, that automatically now sends a signal to your smoke detectors, which gives you early warning to get out of the house. The last thing is, most likely everybody is concerned about cost. The information that we have combined throughout the various groups throughout the state and the country, it costs about $1 a square foot to add sprinkler systems into a new residential structure. So if you do your 3,000 square foot, it costs you about $3,000 extra, because your plumbing piping is already in the building. It's just running off these other legs in order to put the heads in. That's less than the cost of your granite countertops in your kitchen. It's less than the cost of your Italian tile in your bathroom. We see significantly now with new houses in my department as a selling point, the generators. Because the people that are now coming into town, who are moving out of the city, they don't want to be without power if we have another Sandy. The generators generally cost for installation about $10,000. So when you look at where residential sprinklers cost in relation to the other things, it's really a savings. Additionally, your insurance rates, if you have a residential sprinkler, will be reduced. Because we don't have them in New Jersey, I can't tell you how much or its value, but it's like anything else. If you have something that's going to protect property, it's going to protect lives, it's going to give you a reduction in your insurance costs, in perpetuity. I think I touched on a lot of areas. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them for you.
So the one question that I would have, and I know it's outlined in here, you mentioned, and it's in italics, new 1 and 2 family dwellings. So I guess really 2 questions. This would not then, I'm looking for some reassurance that this wouldn't impact someone looking to put an addition on a prior structure.
No, it would not. No, it would not. The law is very clear.
And
The law is very clear in those assembly bills. Well, the 2 bills that are out there, yes.
And I'm assuming the reason that it doesn't go into mentioning above 2 family dwellings is because it's already required?
Yes. For example, the apartments over Darby Road, because of the construction and the size of the building, that building is fully sprinkled. Those apartments have sprinklers in them. It's hard piped because that's what the code says you do. That's a whole different code section under the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA. So, just like if you were in an airport or a mall, those sprinklers are in there for that reason, to protect the people and the property. So you're correct. It would not go in if you were building a new family room in your house. No, it would not go in there. It's for brand new 1 and 2 family dwellings.
Okay. Am I also correct that we don't have any sprinklers?
No, you don't have any sprinklers in this building, because when this building was built, and even today, it's not big enough to require sprinklers.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Does anybody else have a question for Mr. LaCosta? Please.
Yeah, I guess what you're advocating, what you're looking for council is for us to endorse this
Legislation. Yes.
to persuade the Senate and the governor to sign it into law.
That's true. The Senate was already persuaded. They passed it last year. The Assembly and the Senate passed it, I'm not going to say unanimously, but it got passed in both houses. It got passed late in the year last year. When it went to the governor's desk, it just never went anywhere. So it's been reintroduced. It's passed the Assembly this year. I'm hoping that when they come back into session after Labor Day, the Senate will jump on it. It'll get passed again. But we're just looking for that extra little kick, that if it gets to the governor's desk and it's got some local support, that he'll endorse it and it'll become part of the code.
Can I ask you, but Was there, no, that's right. I mean, was there any particular pushback from any group or anyone in particular about reasons why this should not be passed? I'm just interested
Well,
to
we
know.
always get pushback from the Builders Association.
The builders.
Yes, we always get pushback because they have a huge lobby. And you know, in their mind, it's all about dollars. We have a very good relationship with the Builders Association in New Jersey. We actually, in our code advisory group, we have a group of code officials, we have architects, we have engineers, and we have builders. And we're all able to sit around and have a good discussion on things, and we all don't agree on things, but we all bring it to the table. Yeah, with the builders, it's all about dollars, because if they're building 100 houses and it's $3,000 extra a house, then it all mounts up. But I just can't see when somebody wants to put a generator in for $10,000 because they don't want to lose power, and for $3,000 or $4,000, depending upon the size of the house, you can have a sprinkler system and have peace of mind. I'd much rather have peace of mind. Yeah, we all went through Sandy. It was horrible, but we were all lucky that we didn't have any problems. But, those types of things. The builders fight us all the time, but we have a mutual respect for each other, and we have a good dialogue with them. Another thing a number of years ago, we had some issues on the penalties. Penalties when they came out in Uniform Construction Code were $500. $500 in the construction industry then and today is nothing. We actually worked with the builders. We wanted it increased a little more than it is now, but we came to an understanding, and they were understanding, with it. But like I said, they got a whole larger lobby than we do, and so I don't know where their lobby got to in relation to your question about what happened when it got to the governor's desk.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Please?
Mr. LaCosta, thanks for the presentation. You referenced in your presentation, I think it was a cost estimate around $3,000 per house?
Yes, it's about $1 a square foot, roughly.
Okay. You also mentioned the National Fire Protection Association?
Right, NFPA.
Yeah, I happened to be looking on their site earlier today, wondering for some of that same information. And they had some study that said that the average cost in 2008 to put it in a house was $6,400.
How big was the house?
Average.
The average.
Okay.
And then they said, I think this is national average. Maybe we have bigger houses in New Jersey and be even more expensive, I'm not sure. They said in 2013 the average cost was about $6,000, so it seems like it's coming down a little. It's heading in the right direction. So obviously there's that cost, and there's also, can you maybe speak to what would be the cost to maintain these systems?
Zero. Unless that head goes off, there's zero cost.
So you don't have to have it checked out to make sure it's still working?
No, nope, because it's part of your plumbing system. If your shower works and your faucets work and your toilets flush, there's water going through that system because it's a loop system. It's not a dead-end system, so the water's always going through that system. It's coming off of your domestic water system.
Okay. And how often would these have to be inspected?
Only once when the house is inspected, and its normal course of inspections. It would be inspected by the fire inspector, and it would be inspected by the plumbing inspector because they're jointly tied together. And again, if it does get put in the code, I'm sure that's where the jurisdiction is going to fall. There'll be joint plan review between plumbing and fire, and there'll be joint inspection between plumbing and fire. But unless that head goes off, there's no inspection required.
They don't go bad or anything like that. They're good forever.
Yeah. And there have been questions about, if somebody hits a head. Well, your heads are are all recessed. So you'd have to have, somebody'd have to be playing hardball in your living room in order to break that head, because they're flush mounted. They're not like typically the ones you would see out in a larger area where the pipes are exposed and you see the head up there where it could be damaged. They're flush with the ceiling. They're covered. More and more of these things are becoming more architecturally pleasing to the eye. because nobody wants, you don't want to see one of those in your living room. But as we progress, like I said earlier, the technology and the architecture on these is, it is there.
And what's the primary motivation here? Is it to save lives or to save property, or a combination of both?
A combination of both. A combination of both. If you save one life with a fire protection system in a single-family dwelling, that's one less funeral you have to go to a volunteer.
Right. No, I agree with that. I guess for myself, it's a question of cost, right? And certainly costs seem like they're heading down. That's a good thing. Obviously, someday it'll get to a point where it'll be a no-brainer, and we're going to see these things in every house.
Well, we hope that's where we are now.
I think it's inevitable that it'll
right.
get there. I think it's a matter of cost for individuals, and if today it's, I guess there's some lack of clarity about the cost. Maybe it's $3,000, maybe it's $6,000. I guess the question that I would ask myself if I was building a new house is, would I spend, and I understand the contrast with the generator, but if I'm going to spend $6,000 on safety for my family, is a residential sprinkler system the best way I can buy additional safety for my family? I'm not sure that it is at this moment in time, but I think your motivation in this is good, and I think someday we'll definitely get there. I'm just not sure I can support it right now because of the cost.
Anybody else have Mr. Councilman Vastine?
Yes, thank you, and thank you for coming here, because I know we all had a couple of questions the last time it was brought before us. Obviously, this system relies upon water pressure in order for it to be effective. Are there, for people who might be on a well, or for people who might not be connected to the regular pressure of the municipal, whether it be Scotch Plains or somewhere else, are they going to also then have to pay the cost of some type of pressure mechanism in order for this to be effective?
The systems with wells, they have apparatus that works off your well in order to, because a well has a holding tank, and generally they're pressurized, and it would work off of that. You're talking one head 7 gallons a minute. There are systems where you have a well, and you also have a pressurized tank. It's almost like they're about the size of a residential freezer in your basement, and they're all different styles depending upon the types they are. They're plastic, and they're pressurized. You fill them up, and they stay pressurized. And if, in fact, there is a situation, it works off of that tank, so they do have adequate water to, fight that fire for, an amount of time. It depends. You can piggyback these tanks, so you can have more and more depending upon, the size of the house. Yeah, they are available. I've seen them. I'm not that familiar with them. I know that there are towns in Scotch Plains, in New Jersey, that have a lot of wells. We're lucky. We probably only have. We might not have anybody left on domestic water and wells, because I think everybody in Scotch Plains is at least tied into the public water system. But there are other mechanisms and means out there, especially in the rural areas where you don't have a public water supply. Yes.
Well, part of my
I'm sorry, Council, just on that point real quick. My understanding of the bill is that it only impacts homes that are on the public water system.
Well, not this bill.
Looking at the fiscal impact statement that's on the state website.
Well,
it specifically says the bill, provisions of the bill will not apply to manufactured homes or any single 2-family homes that are not connected to public water systems.
Okay, that's news to me. Okay.
Well, couldn't we draft our letter we would draft
I'm sorry.
this? We're not actually.
I don't believe
Okay.
Councilman Vastine had finished asking his question or getting an answer.
Right. So that actually leads me down a different road. My original thought was that people on a well, if the law required them to have this new sprinkler system, then they would be forced to also go out and buy this new pressurization system. But what occurred to me based on that, if that is indeed the fact, that you're kind of requiring one group of people to do something, but you're exempting another group of people to not have to do it, and that concerns me. That this wouldn't be something that everyone would participate in across the board without reservation. Whether we find out that indeed that is the fact, I don't know. Obviously, I think that it's important for us to find ways to prevent loss of life and injury and loss of property. But I think a lot of things, as you well know, have gone into modern building techniques and applications, for example, of multiple electric outlets whereby everybody used to plug into one, and a lot of the incidence of electrical fires has been reduced through that. I guess my overwhelming concern is the same that Councilman Jones expressed, which is that we're imposing another cost on top of an already expensive proposition of new construction in the state of New Jersey. And I'm not sure that I'm not an expert, but I'm not sure that a $3,000 to $6,000 sprinkler system is both the most effective and the most economical way to accomplish those ends. Just an opinion. It's not based on, I've done scientific research down at the fire lab at Princeton, but that's just my take on it. Conceptually, I think the fact that it does not require the rigid pipe, I think is probably going to help this become more and more economical more quickly, at which point it would be, no more a second thought than the $45 smoke detector that you can buy and install yourself. But I do thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Councilman. Mr. LaCosta, I have to tell you, I've listened to a lot of presentations. That was certainly a very thorough one, and I'm not going to belabor this. The Deputy Mayor and I just chatted about it. I mean, some things, some of us view as common sense. And, I don't think this should have anything to do with a marginal cost. It's about saving lives. And lately, I think all of us sitting here have seen too often, tragedy that takes place in homes where, youngster, mother, father, whatever, brother, sisters, dies from a fire. I mean, it's a horrific sight, and it happens often, too often. Today's, limited resources, and limited resources, I'm talking about volunteers. We have a volunteer fire department. Anything that can complement, our firemen by putting out a fire in a newly constructed home, of which these houses probably are upwards of $800,000, I would suspect, in today's market. As a father, I mean, it wouldn't be much of a discussion, because it's about protecting lives, saving personal property, and I suspect over time, as you said, you don't get in an automobile accident, you see how your policies come down, okay? And to me, it seems like a common sense move, but I respect everyone's individual opinion on this. But as I said, and as you said, the passage of this has been done already by the Assembly this year. Obviously there's been a lot of bipartisan support on that to get it done. I suspect the Senate will be the same. I would encourage our municipality to approve this. I just don't see the downside. So that said, where do we go from here, Mr. Giles? Because we're certainly not taking action. I think it is on the agenda, is it not?
It was an attachment, the resolution that was offered at the last meeting.
Is it set for a vote for next meeting? Yes.
So so that's what we will do, right? Ms. Lucina will have it, Mr. Gimes, for a resolution passage. I think we vetted it well enough.
Next meeting.
Yes. We're going to be here a little longer, that means, right? No, I'm kidding. Okay, thank you, Mr. LaCosta, for that
Thank you.
report. The next thing on the item is the preservation.
Good night, Mr. LaCosta.
Next thing on the item is the preservation plan, Shady Rest at Scotch Hills. Today was our follow-up. We had a very lengthy, very thoughtful discussion the last time we were here. I think what we had discussed was a 6 to 12-month plan with a new roof. And as I left the chambers last time, I believe I asked Mr. Barton Ross and you were to sync up and put together something that would give us a more finite cost on what that would be. Seems like we have $138,000 of encumbered money already. There were some comments from the audience as to why we just not use that. So recognizing that it's late in the year, it's August 12th, any action we take would get us in maybe before this, November. So it's something that I would encourage this council to certainly, Mr. Gimes, take some action on, or we'll be discussing this in the fall.
We have an idea of a quote for what it would cost to do a full replacement of the roof. For obvious reasons, that it's a public bidding process.
I know you have to go through that whole process, right?
No, I'm saying, but I'm not going to discuss the numbers because that's part of the.
I understand, of course.
So just so the public's aware of that. We do have we have a very detailed estimate. And we also had a quote for what the preliminary recommendation was for the hot tar roofing. So show you the council what direction you want to go to. The hot tar section of the roof, which is significantly cheaper, or the full roof replacement.
My personal opinion is that we've done enough, quick fixes, and that I think Barton, Mr. Ross, I think was in favor of putting in the permanent roof. And I think that was the consensus of the general public, and I would hope that's the consensus of the council. But I won't speak for the whole council.
It's up to you guys.
I would be, may I speak?
Well, everybody, by all means.
I would be in favor of the full roof. I may have misunderstood, but I thought what was discussed was that some of those patches had actually affected the slopage. The slopage may not be a word even.
You're right.
Where it affects, some of the ability for the water to run off because of the different levels that have been built up. I mean, my preference would be, a complete replacement consistent with our plans, to restore the building.
Yeah, you're correct. The hot tar, though, is a little different than the regular patching.
Right.
So
okay, I'm learning a lot tonight.
Yeah.
I-beams being one of them,
Yeah.
and now hot tar and regular patching being another.
It's a little different, but yeah, so I think this would be the hot tar would probably be a 5 to 10 year fix. Obviously, the roof would be significantly longer. So if the council provides direction either way, we'll get the process rolling with the bidding. And
let's hear if anyone else wants to weigh in on this. Deputy Mayor, please.
Certainly be happy to weigh in. I was not quite sure what the procedure was going to be, whether we were going to move that issue as an action item tonight in our second meeting, or whether it was going to go beyond that. I actually do have remarks prepared for it, and I'm not used to giving a preview of those remarks, but I certainly am in agreement that what we need to do is to replace the roof, to install a new roof at the facility, and conduct the additional repairs that need to be done. So how we go about doing that, I suppose, will be decided, but that's where I stand.
You could make a motion in this meeting and just give direction. I mean, it is a workshop. However, the agenda doesn't say that no action will be taken. The last meeting, it did say that. This meeting, the agenda doesn't say that, so it's not really a motion. It's more just direction. It's not a formal act. If the council, by consensus, gives me that direction, we'll go in that direction.
So I jumped the gun last time, and forgive me. So just because we're going to be here till 10 o'clock, I suspect, we had this discussion at length. I make a motion that we replace the roof at the Shady Rest. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
we need to take a roll call, Ms.
Could we usually have discussion, right? I would just like to ask one brief question of the manager, if I
think
could,
there's a
please.
motion on the floor, Counselor.
We have the opportunity to discuss it,
I'm just
no matter
asking.
what.
I just wanted to get clarification. Okay, I understand that in the past we've had different interpretations of that, but by all means, I don't mean to cut anybody off. I thought we were in sync on this. That's the only reason why I moved it forward. Perfectly fine.
Can I be
No, no, no.
recognized?
It's Mr. Councilman, by all means.
Just real quickly, Jerry, I know you said that obviously because of bid rules, you can't say any specific prices, but can you just provide a little bit of maybe a ballpark? Or I know there was a specific number that was in the document in the architectural study. I mean, we're talking about numbers that are coming in are of that order of magnitude. I want to make sure that if I'm saying yes to something, I'm not saying yes to something that's coming in triple those kinds of numbers.
Yeah, well,
understanding it would have to come back here for a vote.
That number didn't include a few things, I mean, as far as labor and things like that, so you calculate that when you're doing an estimate.
Right. No,
It would be
was
more,
in
it's
there,
definitely
right.
more, I can tell you that, but I'm not sure really, because it's gonna be a biddable project. It's basically akin to an engineer's estimate, and there really is very little I can publicly discuss, except to tell you that.
But it's fair to say that that you're in agreement with the representations that were in that architectural study as far as the estimating goes?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
Okay, that's all I want to know. Thank you.
Excuse me, please. Councilman, I think you haven't spoken.
No, actually, I was going to make a motion to put this on the business agenda, but if we can do it from his motion, then by all means, I mean, let's make progress.
Could I just ask that when you do, it's not an RFP, what are you gonna do?
Be a bid.
Okay, that we would specify that this would also, is this gonna be continued to be under the oversight of the architect?
No, this is definitely not within his scope of work, but I'm pretty comfortable based on his knowledge of the building that, for a nominal fee, he would be the one preparing these specifications.
So that I guess is a question in addition to this
No,
motion?
but I think that's an excellent question. We discussed it last time, but I think what I'm hearing is that'll be part of the bid, right? To have him.
Well, he would be the one
Yeah.
writing the bid.
I think we're all in agreement
Yeah.
with that, right? That he's gonna oversee this replacement because of his background.
Yes.
I think we were in consensus of that last time as well.
And if I were gonna
Glad you
hire
brought it
someone to
up,
write a bid,
Council.
it would be somebody like him to do that.
Okay,
So-
So once again, I'm sorry.
So there will be an emphasis based on the fact that we wish to, this is a historic structure, not my house?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, I just wanted to say, because I was unsure how we were going to approach this, I'm very disappointed if I will not have the opportunity to give my remarks.
You'll have something to say about
I've
the,
been known from
Recreation
time to
Committee.
time, yes, I will.
Mickey, may I say, Mr. Mayor, the motion that the mayor's made is not yet being entertained. We are still resuming the
Okay.
comments of all of us prior to his motion. You will still have the opportunity to make your comments when he once again makes the motion.
Okay. My only concern about the motion, and I just want to clarify this, is if I understand the motion correctly, it just pertains to the roof. And I know that at the last meeting, we had, of course, a very detailed discussion about the other short-term repair work that needs to be done. My preference would be to also include that in the motion, so we can address all of those issues, rather than just the roof.
You can certainly do that. I mean, as the director had mentioned, most of them, if not all of them, are either in place, in progress, or complete.
Right.
So, sure, if you want to add to that, that's fine, but we've already been doing that. And most of them are not going to, I don't think any of them are biddable items, to be honest.
It was an excellent point you brought up, because Mr. Corio had said he was addressing those through our regular
Operating.
Operating budget. So, Counselor, can we get back to my motion? We've had a second, and now I've asked Ms. Lucina.
Well,
Again, we want to discuss it? Okay.
So now is the opportunity to discuss the motion.
No further comment.
there any further comments?
Yes, Mayor, I
my-
would like to, go ahead.
My just my further comments would be that I would hope that any work done to that building is continued to be overseen by the architect. That's it.
Please. Thank you. Please?
Yes.
You have this written.
This country that we live in, America, is truly a great nation. We have spread freedom and democracy to the farthest reaches of the globe and provided some of the greatest medical, technological, and economic progress the world has ever seen. For all of our success, however, America has also been described as the great experiment. We try new things, we evolve, we move forward and make progress. But with every experiment comes some failure and untold effort to get it right. Sometimes we do get it right, and at other times the struggle continues. Two major failures in American history were that of slavery and segregation. Both sought to subjugate some people for the benefit of others. And even though we are still a work in progress, progress has been made. However, that struggle is why the Shady Rest was and is such a great and important symbol of the human spirit and the struggles that we face. The shining example of the human spirit and its ideals is what and has motivated me to do the right thing. At a time when African Americans were being segregated and marginalized, the Shady Rest provided them with a place of refuge and sanctuary. It provided a place for us. You could go to the Shady Rest and escape all of the terrible things happening to you and around you. Even if it was only for the day, you could enjoy golf and tennis, pleasant meals, fellowship, and great entertainment away from the hate and bigotry that existed outside the club. For all of the history that the Shady Rest building contains, it is its triumph of the human spirit that gives it its greatest meaning. And this building, representing that, is truly an important symbol. When I first heard about the history of the Shady Rest, I was truly amazed. To know that a place like this existed, and that it existed in our town, right around the corner, inspired me and ignited in me a desire to bring that place back, which had provided so many with such a special place of respite from the world outside those walls. But in my mind, in order to truly pay our respect and to truly honor the Shady Rest place in our nation's history, we must do things the right way. We would do disservice to react impulsively, to immediately run out at that time and put a new roof on the building, before we even knew what was really needed or whether the building could even support such an endeavor. To do so at that time did not make sense to me. It was my desire to see that every step be taken to ensure the security of the building until such time as we could plan and understand what needed to be done now and well into the future. Obviously, the entire council agreed with this approach, and that there was a unanimous vote, including all of us, and at the time Councilman Beckerman, for undertaking of professional studies of various repairs and improvements to the Scotch Hills Golf Course Clubhouse. We have since officially renamed Scotch Hills, by the way, to the Shady Rest at Scotch Hills. In my opinion, this new name pays tribute to its past, our present, and a combined future. Sadly, we know that despite efforts to patch the roof, some damage was done to the interior of the building this past winter. A winter which saw unprecedented snow levels and multiple polar vortexes which wreaked havoc. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Am I interrupting your conversation?
I wasn't interrupting you. Please, I think you can speak, continue to speak.
Please. Thankfully, the damage was done to things which were not a part of the historic Shady Rest, such as the structure, but rather they were newly added modern materials such as the drop ceiling tiles and sheetrock. However, it is the uncertainty of the winter ahead and the knowledge that the building can structurally support it, which leads me to support putting a new roof on the building at this time. In doing so, preventing damage which might impact the structure or other historical elements of the building in the event that we are forced to endure another unpredictable winter. I do this, however, with some misgiving. I am primarily concerned with the asbestos that is in the roof. My hope is that when we begin work, we do not encounter any problems with the asbestos. My fear is that we will, and that it will cause either future or further unplanned expense for which we do not have enough money, or even worse, a delay. Because we are working on a timeline, as stated earlier, between now and this winter, a delay caused by the need for state intervention and remediation of the asbestos opens up the possibility that we get hit with weather while the roof is off, which indeed will hurt the structure of the building. And I don't want to see that happen. However, my support of a new roof stands after having weighed these concerns with the need to protect and begin progress. But even with a new roof, our work will not be done. Whether you support Plan A, B, or D, we must continue this restoration. We cannot simply put lipstick on the building and call it a victory. We must do more. One day, when everyone who is here now is gone, that building must live on so that future generations will see and understand the great significance that the Shady Rest made in the lives of many. Whether it was Henry Willis Sr. and his dream of having equal, or John Shippen as the first American-born professional golfer, or even that a sleepy town like Scotch Plains could play host to some of the biggest and brightest talent of the day at a time when the country appeared against them. For the sake of those souls, we need to fully preserve the Shady Rest. That is my commitment to you all, and my hope is that my colleagues in our community will join that effort. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for your comments. Is anybody else would like to speak?
Do I have a few brief comments?
A couple of brief comments?
Yes.
We welcome them after that.
Thank you. I did prepare remarks. I am not going to read all of those remarks. That request has been made, and I'll honor that request. If anyone would care to hear the full version of these remarks, please stay after the meeting. I'd be happy to give you the speech. But I do want to say a few things about this issue. You know, last year it first really was brought to our attention as a council as to what the situation was, the conditions at Shady Rest. And I think bottom line, unfortunately at that time, we just did not have sufficient professional expert information to make a truly informed decision. And I think now we do. Now clearly, several months later, we've been provided with a very valuable expert report by Barton Ross of TBR Architects and Planners. It's a very informative and thorough document, and it goes into the rich history at Shady Rest. It covers so many things to mention, and it was extremely enlightening and helpful to me, and I'm sure to everyone else on the council, to get the guidance and the expertise that was put forward in that report. I want to thank the public for the residents of Scotch Plains for coming forward on this issue. It's an important issue. And not just to the Preserve the Shady Rest Committee, but to all of us in Scotch Plains and to us on the town council. It's an extremely important issue. And I'm glad that many members of the public and members of the committee came forward, expressed themselves, gave us their opinions and their concerns, and we obviously take them very, very seriously, and it was very helpful. And I'm always gratified when the public comes forward and speaks to us, because it allows us to serve you better and to understand what it is you're thinking and what your suggestions are from us as your elected officials. As has been stated, the motion is to move forward with the appropriation of the funding to install a new roof at the facility, to replace the old roof. I think that given all the information that we've been provided over the last several months, in particular the report by Mr. Ross, in my view, it's clearly the prudent and the right thing to do to take that action. And as I said before, I think that it's equally important to make sure that all of the necessary repairs to the defects and the deficiencies which exist at the building are properly repaired in a timely fashion. That building is used by many of us, by different groups in Scotch Plains. The seniors use it quite often. We know about the rich history of that building and the contributions made by to the Shady Rest Country Club and its history, and John Shippen and Henry Willis. And I certainly hope that in due time that will be reflected through some type of museum that will be there at some point. But I think the necessary steps need to be taken now to address the conditions at the facility. And I would even suggest that we look in due time beyond that. It's our municipal property, and it's a reflection of our town. And we need to make sure that the building is in good condition and that it has the proper appearance to the public. And that I hope that we will look in due time to address some of the other capital issues that were referenced in the report by Mr. Ross, because I believe that if we're truly going to maintain it properly, we're going to need to do that. I believe that that's the right thing to do now. I appreciate the fact that the public has exercised patience and has given us the opportunity to see through this in a very thorough and detailed fashion to hopefully come up with what is the right decision. I think that it is the right decision to do this, and I think that all of us in Scotch Plains recognize the great history there, and I think that we should do whatever we can to promote it and to preserve it and to make sure the building is repaired and improved where we can in the most economically feasible way. So I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, for that, brief yet very thorough and understanding and background, and well appreciated. Listen, I'm not going to talk as long as the Councilman Vastine did. Certainly nowhere near that, and I'll be briefer than you, Deputy Mayor, other than to say, as many of you know, I've been part of this restoration effort from the beginning, from a time I'll share with you when former Mayor Mauro Cecchio sat me down on his porch with Thurman Simmons, who is the chairman of the John Shippen Foundation, to discuss this building. And boy, it was an eye-opener. And what came out of that meeting was an effort that tonight we bring initial closure to. To the Deputy Mayor's point, there's much work still to be done, but we bring initial closure. You have to crawl before you walk, and we've certainly are now moving in the right direction. But I would be remiss in not thanking those dedicated volunteers, citizens who came together as a committee to preserve and to save and restore the Shady Rest Clubhouse. In particular, I just want to recognize, I could recognize all of them, but I don't want to leave anybody out, so let me say that Ms. Hicks, Sylvia Hicks, was instrumental in pulling this together as the chairwoman of this committee. And I, for one, and this community is eternally grateful. And I know that she would be embarrassed by me saying that because she knows it was a team effort. So suffice to say, I know it was a team effort. I thank you all. With that, Counselor, it's time. That's it. I make the motion. I've heard it second. I would ask that now you call the roll, Ms. Lucina.
Aye.
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 Aye. With that, I thank my colleagues on the council for their comments. And folks, that brings us to adjournment. We will be reconvening. Let's take a 5-minute break for our business meeting. But do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.